My name is Amina, and for most of my life, I moved through the world like a shadow, shaped by expectation, molded by duty, and obedient to a life I never chose. I was born into a traditional Muslim household where structure was not merely guidance but law. Obedience wasn't encouraged, it was required. Our home was quiet in the way that fear often is. My father's word was final and unquestionable, and my mother's silence served as a reminder that women lived behind invisible walls long before marrying into someone else's home. Before I ever learned to spell my name in English, I could recite long passages of the Quran. Childhood wasn't about curiosity or play, it was about memorization, modesty, and discipline. I was taught that paradise hung above me like a distant reward, attainable only through perfect submission. Questioning meant rebellion. Doubt meant sin. My sisters and I understood early that our futures were predetermined: marriage, motherhood, obedience, an inherited destiny wrapped in tradition. I watched my older sisters marry young, slipping quietly into their husbands' homes like birds released into cages that only changed shape. The message was consistent and suffocating: your value is in your purity, your silence, and your ability to serve. At 16, my father summoned me into the living room with my mother lingering behind him like a frail echo. He told me I would marry the new imam, 12 years older and revered by the community. Nobody asked whether I wanted this life. My feelings were irrelevant. Good girls don't need to be asked, my mother whispered later. Our wedding was a parade of colors and voices, celebration for everyone except me. I felt like a child playing the role of a woman, wrapped in layers of cloth and expectation. My husband saw me as an extension of his reputation, a symbol of righteousness. My purpose was simple: produce sons, maintain his home, reflect his status, remain unseen yet flawless. For 11 years, my days looked identical. Pre-dawn prayer, preparing his meals, covering myself before stepping outside our room. My body didn't belong to me, my choices never mattered, and my thoughts stayed caged inside my mind. Community women saw me as the ideal imam's wife, a model of piety. What none of them knew was how hollow I felt. The loneliness of a crowded life is the kind of ache that eats through your soul quietly. Even though I prayed 5 times a day, it felt like my words dissolved before reaching heaven. I lived with a constant emptiness, a quiet internal death that deepened with each passing year. I was surviving, yes, but not living. And I didn't yet know that real death, the one that would set me free, was waiting for me in 2019. March 15, 2019 began like any ordinary Friday. I woke before the sun, the room still cold with early morning air. I prepared for Jummah prayer the way I had for over a decade, carefully, quietly, precisely. My husband reviewed my responsibilities for the day while sipping his tea. His instructions were not unusual: tasks to complete, errands to run, expectations to meet. It was as routine as breathing. But that day held something different. He handed me the car keys. A rare freedom. I rarely drove alone, but he needed supplies from the market. A small crack in the prison walls. I clung to that sliver of independence as I walked out the door. The sky was a soft gray, the kind that warns of rain but never commits. I drove through familiar streets, the hum of the engine a strange companion. For a few quiet minutes, I felt the faintest whisper of control, an emotion nearly foreign to me. I reached an intersection. The traffic light turned green. I pressed the pedal gently, moving forward through the crossing. I noticed the truck only a second before it hit me, a massive metal force barreling through a red light at full speed. Everything slowed down. That suspended moment of realization felt endless. I remember thinking, this is how it ends. The explosion of impact shattered reality. Metal screamed. Glass erupted. The world twisted violently. My body was flung like a rag doll inside the car. Pain stabbed through me, sharp, blinding, everywhere. My chest compressed, my ribs cracked, blood filled my mouth. I tried to inhale, but air refused to enter. Panic surged as darkness tunneled my vision. And then silence. Suddenly, I was no longer inside my body. I hovered above the wreckage, watching my lifeless form slumped against the seat. My hijab soaked in blood. My limbs twisted unnaturally. People rushed toward the mangled car. I heard every word distinctly even though I no longer had ears. She's not breathing. Call an ambulance. Oh God, isn't she the imam's wife? A strange calm enveloped me. I had no breath, no heartbeat, no pain, but I was still me. A presence pulled me upward, away from the scene, away from the broken body I no longer recognized. I wasn't afraid. I was strangely aware. I'm dead. I expected the Islamic afterlife to unfold exactly as I had been taught, angels questioning me, the grave constricting, the scales measuring every deed. But none of that came. Instead, I drifted into a vast darkness that wasn't empty or frightening, more like a passage, a corridor between worlds. I was moving without moving. Time dissolved. Regret surfaced. And then, far ahead, a light appeared. A light that wasn't just brightness. It was calling me. The darkness around me thinned as the point of light grew larger, brighter, warmer. It wasn't harsh, it didn't blind. It welcomed. The way the sun warms your face on a cold morning. I felt myself drawn toward it with a pull stronger than gravity, gentle but irresistible. As the light engulfed me, everything I had carried, fear, guilt, oppression, exhaustion, lifted from me like heavy clothing slipping off. For the first time in my life, I felt weightless, seen, and utterly known. The presence arrived before the form. A force of love so overwhelming it felt like it pressed through every layer of who I was. It wasn't soft or delicate, it was fierce, penetrating, purifying. It felt like truth wearing light. And then I saw him. Not the Isa I had memorized stories about as a child, not the prophet spoken of in our religion, distant and limited. This was different. This was Jesus, but not in a way that required introduction. I knew him the instant my consciousness brushed against his. He was light, yet somehow formed. His face held the softness of compassion and the power of galaxies. His eyes were not simply eyes, they held the entire universe and still managed to hold me. Fear shot through me. I shouldn't be seeing you. I'm Muslim. This isn't who I'm supposed to meet. Yet the love radiating from him drowned out the fear gently, like waves smoothing jagged rocks. I felt exposed, completely transparent, every thought, every hidden wound, every shameful secret rising to the surface. And yet, for the first time, I felt no condemnation, no disappointment, only love. He spoke, but not through sound. His voice was truth itself, appearing inside me like a revelation. Beloved. A single word that shattered me. No one had ever called me that. Not even close. Then came another message, flowing into me like light pouring into darkness. My child, I have waited for you. Confusion flared. But I didn't follow you. I didn't even believe you were God. His reply was like healing wrapped in sorrow. I know. And I waited anyway. The love surrounding me intensified, not demanding, not forcing, simply existing in its fullness. I realized that everything I had believed about God was shaped by fear and rules. But the presence before me burned through all of that like fire resolving fog. And then he reached toward me not with hands, but with himself, drawing me closer. Come. Let me show you your life as I see it. Terror and longing collided inside me. I don't want to see my failures. He responded gently. You don't yet understand what failure is. The review began. Not a movie. Not a memory. More like seeing my entire life at once, every moment, every emotion, through his eyes. And nothing would ever be the same again. The first memory appeared like a living scene unfolding before us, me as a small child, maybe 4 years old, laughing in the garden behind my childhood home. My hair uncovered, my eyes bright, my laughter unrestrained. I hardly recognized her. See, Jesus whispered into my spirit, this is who I created. I stared at the little girl as if she were a stranger. I had forgotten she ever existed. The freedom, the innocence, the unfiltered joy, it felt like witnessing a life I was never allowed to keep. Then the scene shifted. Age 6. I watched my father sternly instruct me to cover my hair. I saw my confusion, my tiny hands fumbling with fabric, my eyebrows furrowed. Why? I had asked, genuinely bewildered. My father's voice echoed. Because men cannot control themselves. You must protect them from sin. Jesus' sadness washed through me. I made men capable of self-control. This was never your burden. I felt the weight I had carried since childhood, a burden I never recognized as foreign. Shame had seeped into me so easily, molding my belief that my body was dangerous, my presence a threat. Age 10 came next. I saw my father strike me for laughing too loudly during a gathering. My small face crumpled in confusion and fear. Jesus spoke gently. This is when you learn to make yourself small. Scene after scene revealed how the world trained me to shrink, lower my eyes, soften my voice, swallow my questions, smother my own light. My mother appeared, her own pain visible in a way I had never noticed as a child. Jesus whispered. She was caged too. She taught you what she was taught. For the first time, compassion rose within me for her, compassion that had been buried beneath years of misunderstanding. Age 13. My first menstruation. I watched myself being isolated, told I was impure, barred from prayer. Jesus showed me how deeply I internalized the belief that womanhood was a flaw, something to hide. Age 15 arrived, a memory I had tried hard to forget. My father announcing I would soon marry the imam. I felt my younger self's silent scream. The desire to say no choked inside me but never reached my lips. Jesus asked, "Do you remember what you prayed that night?" The memory flooded back. "Allah, please don't let this happen." I remembered believing that prayer went unanswered. Jesus replied, "I heard you." I answered, "But not yet." And with those words, the foundations of my entire life began to shake. The scenes shifted into the years following my arranged marriage, each moment unfolding with painful clarity. Jesus shielded the most intimate details from me, but every emotion, every fear, every suppressed scream was laid bare. Age 16. My wedding night, me so young, trembling, a stranger beside me calling himself my husband. I felt the terror of that moment almost as vividly as when I lived it. Jesus spoke softly. "I held you through this." More memory surfaced, years of marital duty performed without desire, consent, or joy. Acts I had forced myself to believe were righteous, but were, in reality, acts of survival. "This is not what I designed marriage to be," he said. I saw my husband through Jesus' eyes, not as a monster, but as a man shaped by a system that convinced him ownership was love. He believed he was righteous. He believed he was leading me toward God. The compassion I felt mingled painfully with anger. Then came the everyday scenes, the ones that had slowly crushed me. Being told what to wear. Being corrected for speaking too freely. Being monitored. Needing permission to leave the house. Having no access to money. The emotional isolation. The ever-present requirement to perform perfection. Jesus revealed the truth plainly. This wasn't marriage. This was sanctioned oppression. I tried to defend it, still clinging to the beliefs drilled into me. But the Quran says, Jesus stopped me gently but firmly. I don't care what any book says when my daughters are being crushed. The truth hit me with devastating clarity. I had spent years betraying myself in the name of obedience. I watched moments where I said yes, while everything inside me screamed no, times when I swallowed opinions, desires, dreams. I saw myself dissolve bit by bit into a role someone else wrote. You were in prison, Jesus said, but the door was never locked. Then I saw something that pierced me more deeply than anything else, my daughter. I watched how I had unconsciously passed the same silencing behaviors onto her. The realization broke me. The chain of generational harm had continued through me. I sobbed without a body to cry with. Jesus held my grief with such tenderness. The oppressed often become oppressors when oppression is all they have ever known. The life review continued, prayers, rituals, religious performances. Jesus showed me the fear beneath each action. Not love. Not devotion. Fear. And then he said the words that unmade me. You were never praying to Allah. Every cry beneath your prayers was reaching me. All the prayers I thought were empty had not been empty after all. They had been answered in this very moment. The life review continued, not to shame me but to free me. Jesus showed me years of kneeling, bowing, washing, reciting motions I performed with exact precision, hoping desperately to be worthy, pure, acceptable. Each prayer had been wrapped in fear of punishment, fear of hell, fear of not being enough. He took me to a moment when I was 22, performing wudu with meticulous care. I saw myself terrified of making a mistake, terrified that any impurity would condemn me. Jesus' voice resonated gently. You were trying to clean yourself to approach God, but you were already clean. That truth broke something open inside me. Every belief I had built my life upon began to crumble. He showed me the image of scales, the Islamic teaching that every good deed and bad deed would be weighed. I had feared judgment more than anything in my life. I expected him to confirm that fear. Instead, he said simply, "There are no scales. There is only love." It didn't make sense. Not at first. Love I had known was conditional, earned, fragile, based on obedience. You can't earn love, he said. You receive it. He showed me passages from a book I had never read, words from the Bible. I did not come to condemn the world, but to save it. I struggled internally. But I'm Muslim. I rejected you. I never followed you. I prayed to someone else. Jesus' reply carried no anger, no disappointment. You cannot reject someone you were never truly introduced to. How could you reject me when they never showed you who I am? The compassion in those words dissolved every wall inside me. He continued, "My child, you were alive in your body, but your spirit was asleep. Fear kept you silent. Tradition kept you small. Control kept you obedient. But none of that was life." He showed me two paths weaving through my memories. The path of fear, obligation, and performance. And the path of truth, identity, and freedom. I had lived entirely on the first path. He looked at me with a gaze that felt like fire and tenderness combined. "I did not bring you here to condemn you. I brought you here to wake you." The next words he spoke felt like a key turning inside my soul. Perfect love casts out fear. If your faith is built on fear, it is not from me. Everything I believed twisted and trembled. Everything I thought was truth was unraveling. And yet, for the first time, I felt at peace. Jesus' presence grew even stronger around me, like standing in sunlight after decades underground. The life review slowed, and I sensed something shifting, as though we were approaching the purpose of the entire encounter. He asked gently, "Amina, do you want to truly live?" The question stunned me, because the truth was simple and terrifying. I didn't know. I had never lived. Not really. "I want to show you," he said, "but it will cost you everything." Fear flickered. "Everything?" "Your old life," he continued. "Your security, your marriage, your community, your comfort. Everything familiar." I felt panic rise. What would be left of me? His answer arrived like a steady flame. "You will gain yourself. You will gain freedom. You will gain truth. And you will gain life, real life." Then the room, or realm, shifted. Jesus stood before me with gentleness so immense it overwhelmed me. "You must go back," he said. "But I will not force you to remember." Two choices appeared in front of me, not visually but spiritually. One, return to the world and forget everything. Return to my old life. Return to silence. Return to the cage. Return to a marriage and a faith built on fear. No memory of this encounter. Only survival. Two, return to the world and remember everything. Carry this truth into a life where freedom would be costly. Face rejection, loneliness, danger. Lose everything familiar. But live awake. Jesus whispered. If you choose to remember, you can never go back to sleep. The weight of the choice crushed me. I wanted comfort. I wanted familiarity. I wanted my mother, my family, my community. But I also knew the truth. I had never been alive among them. What would you choose? His voice nudged me without pressure, like a loving hand resting on my shoulder. Comfortable slavery or painful freedom? The answer rose from deep within me with surprising strength. I choose to remember. The joy that radiated from him felt like warm waves crashing over me. "I have been waiting for you to choose yourself," he said. I felt his presence draw close, not just as a savior, but as someone who knew every piece of me intimately. His final words wrapped around my spirit like a promise. Go back. Be free. Help others find freedom. I will be with you always, even when you cannot feel me. And then he touched my forehead. The light vanished. The darkness returned. I felt myself falling back into my body. And then, agony, breath, life. The shock of re-entering my physical body was unlike anything I could have imagined. Pain slammed into me from every direction, sharp, suffocating, overwhelming. It felt like being crushed all over again. My lungs convulsed as they fought to draw in air after 8 minutes without breath. My chest screamed, my ribs felt broken, my head pounded with a violent intensity. Voices erupted around me. She's breathing. We've got her back. There's a pulse. The cold air burned my lungs. The weight of a body after floating as spirit felt unbearable, heavy, confining. I tried to speak, tried to tell them what I had seen, but my mouth wouldn't cooperate. My consciousness flickered like a dying flame. I woke again in the ICU, surrounded by machines, tubes, and blinking monitors. Sterile lights made everything surreal. My husband sat by the bed, relief on his face, whispering Quranic verses over me. The words felt distant, almost foreign. Doctors explained my injuries. Broken ribs, a punctured lung, internal bleeding, a severe concussion. They called it a miracle that I survived it all. They said 8 minutes without oxygen should have left me brain damaged. But my silence frightened them. I listened, but the memory of Jesus burned inside me like a secret fire. I waited for the breathing tube to come out. When it finally did, my husband leaned close, whispering, "Alhamdulillah. Allah has spared you." My first words came out cracked and raw. It was Jesus. His expression changed instantly, fear laced with anger. "What?" "Jesus," I repeated. "I saw Jesus." His face drained of color. "The trauma has confused you," he insisted. "You were hallucinating." Doctors echoed his explanation. Oxygen deprivation. Visual distortions. Near-death illusions. They gave me scientific comfort to erase a spiritual truth. But I knew what I saw. I remembered every moment. Every word, every feeling, every revelation. And no one believed me. Returning home after the hospital was like stepping into someone else's life with someone else's memories. The hijab felt like a costume. The rituals felt like motions without meaning. Every Islamic prayer felt hollow compared to the connection I had experienced. Yet I kept the truth locked inside me. I performed the prayers. I recited the verses. I obeyed expectations. But inside, everything had changed. I was living 2 lives. The obedient imam's wife on the outside, and the awakened follower of Jesus on the inside. And the tension grew heavier each day. Weeks passed after my return home. My body healed slowly, but my spirit had already raced far ahead. Everything I had once accepted unquestioningly now felt foreign. Even the walls of my house, the same walls I had tended for 11 years, seemed smaller, tighter, dimmer. I moved like a stranger in my own life. My husband noticed immediately. "You're distant," he said. "You're not the same." He was right. At night, when the house fell silent, I replayed the encounter with Jesus. His words echoed inside me like a heartbeat. The truth I carried felt too large to contain. 3 weeks after returning home, I finally had a moment alone with my smartphone, a small window into a world I had never been allowed to explore freely. My hands trembled as I typed, "Jesus near-death experience." Stories appeared instantly. People from different cultures and religions describing encounters almost identical to mine. I wasn't alone. My heart pounded. Hope rose. Then came the most terrifying search. Bible online. I downloaded a Bible app and hid it in a folder labeled Recipes. Every step felt like rebellion. Every click felt like freedom. I began reading in secret on the bathroom floor with the shower running so no one could hear me turning the virtual pages. One verse struck me like electricity. "And you will know the truth. And the truth will set you free." I broke down sobbing quietly under the dim bathroom light. He had spoken those exact words to me. For the first time in my life, prayer felt like connection, real connection. No ritual washing, no memorized phrases, no fear. Just me whispering, "Jesus, are you really here?" And his presence flooded the room like warm, invisible sunlight. The peace was unmistakable. It wrapped around me the same way it had on the other side. Weeks turned into a double life, one lived outwardly for my husband and community, The other lived inwardly with Jesus. I prayed the Islamic prayers physically, while praying to Jesus secretly in my heart. I memorized Quranic verses aloud, while reading the Gospels silently on my phone. I covered myself in front of people, but stood uncovered before God. I attended mosque events, while craving Christian teachings. The contradiction inside me tightened every day. My husband sensed the shift. "You need more Quran," he insisted. "You need to fight the whispers of Shaitan." But the whispers he feared were not darkness, they were truth. 3 months in, the strain became unbearable. I felt like a bird pressed against the bars of its cage, ready to break through. I could no longer pretend. I could no longer perform. I had been awakened. And awakening always demands action. By month 4, my double life had grown too heavy to carry. Pretending became exhausting. My husband's scrutiny intensified, questions, warnings, pressures. "You're slipping. You're neglecting your duties. You're becoming rebellious." He consulted other imams who insisted I needed religious counseling. They said my accident had weakened my faith. They said Jesus was a deception. But I knew deeper truth. In secret, I reached out to a Christian church using a false name. I expected suspicion, rejection, but found warmth instead. A pastor's wife spoke to me over a quiet Zoom call. When I told her what I had seen, she cried. Not because she doubted me, but because she believed me so easily. Someone finally believed me. Little rebellions grew. Removing my hijab at home. Listening to Christian worship music through earbuds. Reading the Bible openly in the bathroom. Imagining a life beyond the one I was trapped in. Each small act added oxygen to the suffocated parts of my soul. Then came the moment that changed everything. One evening, my husband went through my phone, something he believed he had the right to do. He found the Bible app, hidden among recipes. "What is this?" he demanded. The fury in his eyes terrified me but also clarified everything. I didn't lie. "Yes," I said. "I've been reading it." "You will delete this now," he ordered. "You will not bring this blasphemy into my house." My voice was unexpectedly calm. "I'm not disrespecting Islam. I'm following Jesus." His face twisted in shock. "You are my wife. You will obey." The words landed like chains. Then came the ultimatum. "Stop this or leave my house." Something inside me rose with strength I had never known. "Then I'll leave." He stared at me as if I had become unrecognizable. "You would choose this over your marriage?" "I'm choosing truth over comfort," I said softly. "I'm choosing freedom over fear." That night, I packed a single bag. No money, no plan, no certainty. Only faith and the memory of Jesus telling me, "I will be with you always." As I walked out the door, my husband called after me. "You'll regret this. You'll come back." I turned slightly, my heart pounding but steady. "I died once," I said. "I'm not afraid of death or life anymore." And I left. The night swallowed me, but it wasn't darkness I walked into, it was freedom. Leaving my husband's house felt like tearing off a second skin. Freedom was terrifying. Every step I took away from the life I had known felt like stepping off a cliff with no guarantee of landing safely. My family's reaction came quickly. My mother cried over the phone, begging me to return. My father shouted that I was an embarrassment. My siblings were told not to contact me. The community turned me into a cautionary tale. The imam's apostate ex-wife. Threats appeared online. Rumors spread. I became both villain and tragedy in their eyes. But I wasn't alone. The church I had contacted opened their doors without hesitation. They gave me a room, clothes, food, safety, no strings attached. For the first time, women sat with me and asked how I felt, not what I had done. Compassion without agenda was unfamiliar, but deeply healing. Every part of rebuilding my life felt monumental. I opened a bank account for the first time. I learned public transportation. I got small jobs and felt pride in earning even a little money. I wore colors, blue, yellow, soft pink, and felt both naked and alive. I learned how to laugh without lowering my gaze. The day of my baptism stands out like a second rebirth. When I went under the water, it felt like reenacting the 8 minutes I spent in death, but this time by choice, without fear. Rising out of the water felt like inhaling life for the first time. College classes came next. I pursued counseling. My mission became clear: help women heal the wounds of spiritual and emotional captivity. I met others who had escaped similar religious systems: Muslims, Hindus, Christians, even atheists. Oppression had many forms, but freedom tasted the same for all of us. And yes, I eventually started dating carefully, quietly, without shame. Learning what healthy affection felt like healed parts of me I didn't know were still broken. The journey wasn't smooth. There were nights when loneliness suffocated me. Times I missed my mother's voice. Moments when finances were so tight I skipped meals. Episodes of panic and nightmares from the trauma. Healing is not linear. But every painful step was better than the numbness I lived in before. Above all, Jesus remained constant. When I doubted, He steadied me. When I panicked, He calmed me. When I felt unworthy, He reminded me. Beloved, I had lost everything familiar, yes. But for the first time, I had gained myself. It's been years since the accident that ended one life and began another. When I look back at the girl I was, the obedient child, the silent wife, the woman taught to fear God, I barely recognize her. She lived in a cage so long she called it home. Now I live in a small apartment filled with sunlight, secondhand furniture, and priceless freedom. My job is simple but mine. My college classes challenge me, stretch me, excite me. I wake up each morning knowing I can choose my own clothes, my own meals, my own path. These small freedoms feel like miracles. I still carry wounds, memories that sting, trauma that resurfaces without warning. But now I face those wounds with strength, not silence. Jesus walks with me in every mundane moment, at the grocery store, during classes, while cooking, while crying. I don't perform for Him. I don't earn His love. I rest in it. Some people want me to hate Islam. I don't. I understand now that people are often trapped in systems they didn't build. I condemn oppression, not individuals. I pray for my sisters still living in fear, still confusing captivity with righteousness. As for my family, forgiveness is a slow, ongoing journey. I still ache for my mother. I still wish things could be different. Maybe one day they will be. I share my story now, not to convert, not to condemn, but to comfort. To tell anyone listening that freedom is possible. That God is not the voice of fear, shame, or dominance. That love, real love, liberates. Sometimes I sit quietly and ask myself, did it really happen? Did I truly die? Did I really meet Him? And then the peace arrives, gentle and unmistakable. The same peace that flooded me in the light. Yes, it happened. And it changed everything. On March 15, 2019, I died for 8 minutes. But in truth, I had been dead for 27 years before that. Jesus didn't just bring me back to life. He brought me to life for the very first time. I was once the perfect Muslim wife. Now I am an imperfect Christian woman. By the old standards, I have failed. But failure never felt this free. Never felt this real. Never felt this alive. I am finally, truly, beautifully alive.